Hello, everyone, and welcome back to D&D&D&D&D campaign number 1, Under Locks and Keys. When we last left off, the party arrived to the island of Suicide Hollow under the hostage negotiations of a Britannian pirate hunter, John Bowman Brand, aboard the pirate hunting vessel the Rotterdam. Forcing the party ashore, the party has found base camp under the loose, informative protection of the person they're here to save. Klevak, the ever-prepared, they call him. Having turned your Captain Thoun's improvised shelter from easily decades ago into a proper functioning one-man village, the party has something of a headquarters while they tensely negotiate with the vying factions of the island, attempting to discern the identity of the strange predator that stalks the merchant. Suspecting that if you find this creature that Klevak wants eliminated, you may also find Bowman's target, Captain Red, the cannibalistic pirate with a strange stomach parasite that Paul had adventured with some time ago. Searching the island, you found a variety of predators, spirits that haunt it in the night, and strange organic spiderwebs spun at the base of the volcanic mountain on the east of the island. You all went down for a long rest, save Paul, who stayed up in the night guarding Bowman's artillery crew. You all get a long rest. Paul, you take a point of exhaustion. And let's dive back in to Under Locks and Keys.
Yeah.
As you all awaken, and Paul, you can see the tropical morning sun rising in the distance. Those of you who are awake, Paul and Avaben, you see as the sun rises, one by one, the flaming spirits that haunt the island begin to vanish into the smoke. Those who weren't looking for them or at them at the time could easily suspect that they hadn't been there at all. Paul, you can hear some raised voices and chatter from the artillery crew below. But for those back at base camp, Avaben, you and Ollie do not see any activity other than the restless spirits in the night. And Greylog and Asari, you awaken with little trouble or incident. You're all sweaty and uncomfortable given your environment, but otherwise able to continue unimpeded. I'll say, Paul, since you are separated from the rest of the group at the moment, what would you like to do?
I mean, I guess I'm just gonna simply watch down and focus on the group at hand that has to keep an eye on.
All right. Avaben, what will you do once your watch has concluded?
I'm trying to remember if there was something he said he was gonna do. I don't exactly have pen and paper on fucking hand, so I can't write this shit down. So I'm trying to think. Did I say he was gonna do anything?
In the future, do remember that you can take notes on your phone, but you had said that you were going. You had said that you were going to speak to you all about He said that he had some ideas on potentially communicating an organized plan to Bowman on how to approach potentially entering the creature's nest to maximize safety and minimize risk to yourselves or your unwilling escort.
All right, I guess we'll do that then. We'll go find the boy.
All right. Sorry and Greylog, anything from you?
Probably try to catch up with Paul. Give him a hand. Now that I'm rested and everything.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Noted.
Sounds like it won't take very long. Like a couple minutes.
Yeah, it'll still take them some time to catch up because it's still going through pretty harsh terrain. But yeah,
I just assumed they were gonna fly. So.
Oh yeah, that is true, Greylog. How are you gonna approach them? Just so I know when you're gonna get there.
Let's see. Do I want to use a wild shape or do I just want to use a spell? I just use a 4th level spell and polymorph into a bird.
Okay.
A woodpecker to be exact.
A presumably large one, or are you just gonna fly yourself there?
A Sari could fly on her own.
No, true. All right. Noted. Avaben, as you head through base camp to get to the beach where you all said they would be mapping and planning, you see Greylog and Asari come out of the improvised hotel of Klevak's construction, and Greylog morphing himself into a woodpecker, and Asari sprouting their draconic wings. They take to the air, heading deeper into the woods to catch up with Paul and the artillery crew. Avaben making your way past them and heading towards the beach where the longboats had been docked. You come out of the tree line, and after a quick scan of the shoreline, see you all sitting some distance away, just to where the water would lap at your feet, and he appears to be in a deep meditation. You can see around him in the sand, although it is getting eaten away by the tide, are some doodles and sketches and sand and dirt, presumably getting his ideas out of his head and in a place he can more rationally think them out.
Very well. I guess the baby will see what he's come up with.
As you approach, you can see him kind of tilt his head a little bit, seemingly having heard you coming. Looking at what
I
remains.
imagine elves are pretty good at hearing. They got those big ears.
Mm-hmm. And looking at the sand, again, many of his writings have been eaten away by the tide, although this doesn't seem to concern him particularly. You see that written in the sand is some small little sketches of what you recognize to be a loose map of the island. Or at the very least, it seems, the areas that have been definitively noted. You can see a doodle of a large tree surrounded by snapping triffids, the volcano surrounded by ivy and spider webs, a cannon positioned in between the volcano and base camp, and the base camp where he has done a few doodles of a mixture of what appears to be a rendition of the party and crew with sad faces, and the rest of the island's hosts with little angry faces. You can see. Go on.
Owen's just like, well, I can see your art hasn't improved much.
He kind of scoffs and turns to look at you, opening one eye. Well, luckily the tide will make sure I don't deface the beach in the long term. I just needed to get it out of my head and see how it looked. I've been Mostly just thinking.
No, you're fine. It's one of those things, you know, what do you call it? Hard giving people a hard time.
He kind of chuckles, but kind of scooches, allowing you to sit, you and Ollie to sit near him without sitting on his doodles, and patting the sand next to him. I've been thinking, and while we don't know much about this creature, we at least have a few useful things of note. And I can think of a few things. They say there's a river of lava to the north. I was thinking maybe we could try and redirect it somehow. It would take time, but it's certainly an option. But the problem is, I don't think any of us have any idea what's actually in there. But I did see that the river, if we can find its point of origin, maybe that can be something useful. It has to start somewhere, and I haven't seen a waterfall yet.
I mean, for all we know, it could go from one end of the island to the other.
At this, Ollie actually pipes up and... Actually, I don't know if you remember, Avaven, but near where we were keeping watch, further up the river, it actually seems to come out of the volcano itself. Little tunnel that leads in. Did you see it?
I wasn't looking at that. I was looking for anything. I was looking for, you know, the fire things and see if anything wanted to come out of the volcano.
She gives a kind of playful smirk, and hunter's instinct. Always got to check your corners. You all seem...
Yeah, I think this group might be making me a little sloppy.
She kind of rolls her eyes and elbows you playfully. Well, thanks. That actually does help. If there's a water source in the volcano, then that confirms my theory. It's hollow. There must be something inside.
Well, I'd imagine there's a lot of fire and molten rock and things like that inside.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But why would a creature that's terrified of heat and loud noises live inside a volcano?
He may not be living there, but maybe the treasure is there. We suspect that its host desires the treasure. It may be it had no choice but to go in there to find the treasure.
Maybe, but that raises another unanswered question. And he gestures to another one of his doodles, which is being lapped away by the water. But you can just make out a very
Is
large...
there a stick nearby?
Yeah, you'd see there's a few branches.
Avaven will help him out and use a stick to kind of redefine the image.
As you kind of trace over his lines, you can see it's a doodle of what appears to be a very large stick figure on top of the mountain and boulders raining down on base camp.
Have there been boulders raining down?
Not while you're here, but you do recall that being mentioned in the descriptions of the curse you got from the sailors. I know you don't have much faith in magic, Avaben, but I simply can't believe that this creature is just not being influenced by the curse, or that we wouldn't see it if it was somehow just powering through it. It doesn't sound like whatever this curse is exactly quiet.
Possibly, but like you said, the volcano could be hollow. There could be tunnels all that goes way far down. He could be super far ahead of us at this point. He didn't come out at all last night. You would think by this creature's description it wouldn't be able to stop itself from feeding, but it apparently never came out.
Not that we saw. He kind of
Well, I didn't hear
Drums
any
his
screams
fingers.
or sounds of combat.
You all kind of chuckles, but Ollie seems a little more serious, and some of the most dangerous predators are the quiet ones.
That is true. But it is, I will admit, it is possible that it could have come out without us knowing, but you think there would have been some kind of disturbance.
Well, I'm sure our host, our lovely hostess, is going to let us know if any of her men provided dinner that night. And as far as I saw, your friends all seem fine. We may be off the hook this time, but I don't know how long that's going to be the case. So whatever you're thinking, you all, I suggest you get to it. Well, if the volcano is hollow and the creature is inside for whatever reason, that means there has to be a way in.
I'd imagine it's probably somewhere through the webbing it put up.
That's what I thought too, but I mean, Ollie, leave him alone, but you're a pretty observant guy. Certainly better than me at this sort of thing, at any rate. If there was a doorway, I'm sure you would have noticed something. Difference in wind, echoes, even the sound of water if the river flows through there. But you said that when you looked, it seemed like it was just a solid wall.
A solid wall of this fleshy mass mixed with some of the foliage on the mountain. It was almost like the two things were melting together.
He gives a slow nod, and Klavak said that he's found evidence of people having lived on this island once, but hasn't seen any form of civilization since he's been here. I'm thinking, well, remember whenever we had to get into the Underdark to get the pistol? There was a secret
It might
door.
be under the mountain or volcano.
He gives a nod. Secret door that we need a password of some kind to open. Maybe this creature knows it and we don't.
Maybe the wall isn't necessarily to tell when someone's getting close, but to obscure where the door is.
But even if we found it, that doesn't tell us how to open it. And I'm sure even Bowman would have to agree, we can't just start setting off gunpowder at the base of a volcano. It could erupt and kill us all.
Yeah, you never know how much of a hair trigger that thing could have.
But if there's an active lava flow, it has to be ready to go at any moment. We'll have to be careful. And that goes double for you and your friends. Don't set off any bombs once we find a way in.
That may be difficult. Yeah, no. Sometimes I tell them things and it just goes through their heads. You know, like I told one of them, like whenever we were going through Grindel Swamp, I told one of them to just keep moving. What does he do? He starts staring at it.
The two of them.
I tell one of them not to try to play with the Spriggans, and what do? They play with the Spriggans.
Ollie, kind of leaning back idly, kind of gives a smirk, and to be fair, I live with them and I still make that mistake once or twice.
Fair. I will give them that one. But it just goes to show that their track record with listening can be a little hit and miss. I can't guarantee anything. But I can at least guarantee I will tell them, and I can't, at the end of the day, force them to listen.
The two of them kind of glance to each other with kind of odd expressions before looking to you, and you all gives a sigh. Just be careful, all right? That goes for you, too. Anyways, as for a plan, it's loose, but if you guys and the artillery crew can't find a way in, then maybe we can check out those statues to the north. Maybe it'll give us some kind of clue.
Yeah, it would help to find the door. Sometimes these doors, like the one to the Underdark, will pretty much tell you how to solve them if you can figure out what they're saying.
He kind of gives a smile and, true, but we can't assume it's all going to be that easy.
But we should find the door first, so we at least know where it is, and it may, if nothing else, offer some kind of clue.
Right.
Then we can try to check out the statues and see if they have the rest of the answer, if necessary.
Do you think I should tell the captains about this?
No, we probably should to avoid an incident.
All right.
Last thing we need is for us to go off and then they come off half-cocked behind us.
Good point. I'll definitely have to make sure they know to be careful with the powder. I'll pass that on.
Yeah,
Ollie,
you might want to tell that Britannian captain to be a little careful with her cannons. You know how they are with them.
right. You should probably catch up with your friends. Ollie and I will pass word on to the captains.
Very well.
He gives you a kiss on the cheek, Ollie patting you on the shoulder, and you all make your way back to base camp before breaking off. You all and Ollie heading to locate Bowman and assemble the captains. You heading into the jungle behind the rest of your allies. Asari, Greylog. Paul, you see the two of them coming fairly well in advance, and for the two of you on the way, Paul in the air, and these people being some of the only people this deep in the jungle, not super difficult to find, especially since you know exactly what you're looking for. Paul, you are free to descend and join the dialogue if you wish, but I will say that Asari and Greylog, for their part, you catch up to the artillery crew fairly quickly. Again, but as the crow flies, just a few minutes out. Crows, thankfully for them, do not have to machete their way through God's forsaken jungle.
Yeah.
As the two of you approach, I'll say I'm assuming you're approaching the crew rather than Paul.
I thought we were aiming for Paul.
All right, noted.
Yeah, I'd like to aim for Paul as well.
Okay, noted.
Are we shooting Paul?
No, no.
Yes, we're going to take out the tank in our group and
Yeah,
fuck us all over.
he's been making things too easy. All right. The two of you join Paul, who looks sweaty and exhausted, but determined to continue his protective circling. As mentioned, the three of you can hear raised voices from the crew below, but after a time, they assemble their gear, break camp, and continue to move towards the distant webbing. Avaven, being used to traveling through dense forest and jungle, it doesn't take you too long before you find yourself following the tracks left by the cannon and the large encampment of people. You eventually catch up on the rear of the Britannian artillery crew. Looking through the jungle canopy above, you can see your friends circling overhead. They all look back and kind of jolt tensely, but one of the crewmen, I'll say you wouldn't recognize them, but for player reference, the crewman that Paul had spoken to, who had identified himself as Eric, kind of waves at his soldiers to calm them and gives you a nod as you approach. Glad to have you with us. You seen anything out here?
Did we see anything?
Oh, he's referring to a Vaben.
Oh,
You guys said you were up in the air, so.
okay.
He kind of frowns and looks to his crew. Okay, we have these people with us. They'll keep us safe. You can hear some grumbles among the crew, like they're not 100% certain you guys won't just leave them for dead. And Avaben, you can catch some loose mutterings from a few of them before they continue to move.
Most of the party probably would, you know. It was so fair.
Well, no, it's not very beneficial to let this thing eat them all.
You all follow them along as they make their trek through the jungle. It takes some time, but by the time the sun is about in its midday point, beating down on all of you mercilessly, the crew breaks the tree line and enters into the clearing with the two avian cocoons and the webbing built against the wall of the mountain. All right, men. We make base here, but we do not load or fire. Investigate the area. See if there's anything nearby. Report back. Do not engage. And whatever this stuff is, and he kind of looks discomfortedly at the webbing, don't touch it. The crew, seemingly not needing the warning on that, begin to disperse into the surrounding tree lines. Eric placing a hand and leaning on the unloaded cannon as the men make it in place and ready to be operated, but again, currently unloaded. And he looks to Avaben before looking up at the rest of you and waving for the three of you to come down.
Yeah, I'm gonna come down and like right as I get to the ground, transform into like little, the superhero landing thing.
Yeah.
You know, the one that's really bad on your knees, apparently.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Eric kind of quirks a brow as you land in front of him. That can't be good for your knees.
No, but it's fun. The exhilaration really gets to you going sometimes, you know?
Paul, sorry, do you come down as well?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, you muted if you were talking, but I'll assume you come down as well unless told otherwise. As you all...
Yeah, she said yes.
Okay. As you all dismount, Eric kind of nods and, well, my men and I are here to assist your investigation if there's anything we can do. I'm not planning to have us start firing willy-nilly until we have a better idea what we're up against, or where we're even going. Paul, was it? You didn't see anything unusual in the jungle during your watch, did you?
Nothing. I don't think anything dangerous. At least the only thing I could see was some lights.
He gives a nod and gives a sigh that you almost suspect to be relief. Thank you. Well, this is certainly a macabre little nest. He crosses his arms and looks over the cocooned avians and the ivy webbing against the wall.
Is everyone here, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly seems to be a bit of a mess.
So, do we see any other ways in?
Make a perception check.
Are we at the wall or are we at the webbing?
Technically it's sort of one and the same, but yes, you're at the little like area where there was the two avian cocoons, the stretch of webbing, which then hits the wall of the mountain and merges with the plant life.
Just out of curiosity, can even like see if he can hear anywhere that sounds like it would be an entrance?
Roll perception, and because this is sound based, you don't have disadvantage.
And I got an 18.
Noted.
I guess it's like sound or feel, because he might be able to feel wind or something.
Yeah, so yeah, regardless, you wouldn't have your disadvantage, but thank you for noting that.
Perception?
Yes.
That's going to be 9 plus 12 is what? 21?
9 plus 12, yes, okay.
Correct. 21.
Paul, anything from you?
Nope.
All right. Sorry? Okay.
Sorry, what did I roll for?
Well, I'm not asking you to roll. I'm asking if you want to do anything.
I'd like to maybe look around, see if I see anything.
Roll investigation.
Okay. Investigation. Just kind of looking around. Stay in your bowl. Okay, 17 plus 3.
Okay.
So
19.
20.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, plus
20.
3, so it'd be a dirty 20, yeah. It'd be a sweaty 20. All right.
A gross, nasty 20.
Yeah.
It's a 20 that's been sitting out in the muggy forest of an island.
Yeah.
That's a swamp ass 20.
Yeah, swamp ass 20. Greylog, kind of searching around. You don't see anything that makes an obvious door. However, I will note, similar to what you guys had noted the first time checking this place out, you do see that at the base of the river's flow, indeed, it does seem to cut into the mountain. But you can't see at all what's in the river, what's in this little cavern, if it even goes anywhere. But yes, you can see there's a tunnel of sorts carved by the water leading inside the mountain. However, I will note, Greylog, you in particular probably would find this unusual, being a druid, so you're attuned to this sort of thing. You would expect a water flow like this to be going from the island into the mountain. Given that, as mentioned, you would suspect there to be a waterfall or some origin point for this body of water somewhere deeper in the island. But you note with curiosity something you hadn't observed your first time here. The water's coming out of the volcano.
What's the temperature like of the water?
Are you willing to touch it?
I'll have my hand above it, and if it's not overly warm, then yes.
Putting your hand above it, you feel a little bit of kind of resonant heat, but not an extreme amount. And kind of delicately tapping at the surface before putting a finger in. It is noticeably warm, although that could just be the latent tropical air.
Basically, it's not boiling.
Yeah, it's certainly not boiling. Have you guys ever like had a water bottle in a hot car?
Oh yeah, it's that lukewarm.
Yeah,
temperature.
yeah, it's like that. Like you touch it, and it doesn't hurt you, but you're like, wow, that is warm water.
The kind that you take a sip of and you want to spit it out immediately, like.
Yeah. Avaben approaching the wall of the mountain, but again, unless stated otherwise, I will assume you're not willing to touch anything.
Yeah, not right now.
You give a listen. The part of the mountain that isn't covered with ivy and webbing, you gently run a finger across as you try and listen and feel for any potential hollow point. You do not hear anything that, at the very least, indicates something hollow enough to be a doorway, at least in the areas that you're willing to get close enough to check. There isn't really a way you can obviously tell, unless you were to use some sort of magic, to get close enough to the webbed part of the volcano to give this sort of shoe leather investigation to. But I will say you are at the very least confident that none of the parts of the mountain that are not coated in webbing and ivy appear to have any audio or textile cues that there's
Did
any
you
sort
notice
of
anything
entryway.
through the webbing?
Looking through the webbing, as mentioned last time, but giving another examination, the webbing ends with this kind of cross stitch of ivy and web, but there doesn't appear to be anything behind it but solid stone.
Okay. Man, why is that a... I know Paul did some kind of detection with it. What did he use exactly?
He had used, I believe, I want to say it was either Divine Sense or Detect Good and Evil, Paul. Do you recall?
Essentially, Divine Sense is detect good and evil, just weaker.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, he had used Divine Sense.
But I got nothing out of it.
Okay.
So it's not at least nothing within 60 feet of me that is not within total cover. There is no fiend, undead, or like celestial.
Mm-hmm. Asari, from your investigation, as you kind of poke around a little bit, again, I will assume, unless told otherwise, you do not touch the webbing or anything of potential risk. You, similar to Greylog, notice the tunnel that's formed by the river. Looking around, you do not find any obvious indications of substantial value. However, you do notice two things that kind of catch your attention, at least. You noticed that it hadn't been there before, but parts of the webbing that had been there before are no longer. In their places are scorch marks in the webbing that cut down even into the grass and dirt of the jungle floor. These little unhealthy patches like you would see in a coat of fur where burns had given way and are slowly degrading the integrity of the web.
Interesting.
You also notice, as you turn your attention to the two cocoons, that while granted you do not know how long these have been here, this webbing appears most likely sticky, although nobody has touched it to confirm that. But it certainly doesn't seem overly thick or hardy. The bits you can see, it appears individually very loose and just knotted together. But you noticed these avian cocoons still have in the cocoon the outlined shape of their wings. You would know, as an archaeologist, a studier of things gone past, that at least with things like fossils, feathers and the actual shape of the wings do not preserve in dead bodies. It would just be the bones that make up the actual, like, wing joints themselves. By all rights, these birds should have rotted by now. Have been long since degraded, especially with the jungle heat and being completely encased in very warm organic webbing. That webbing should be struggling to hold its shape, yet it holds a solid form of a cocooned avian perfectly.
Would I be safe to assume that it's recent rather than old?
Could you repeat, sorry?
Oh, sorry. Would I be able to draw the conclusion that it's recent and not old?
without a more close inspection, you aren't necessarily able to determine its age, but you know that Klavak has been here for months and mentioned these being here as if they had basically he didn't make any indication to you at least that these were super recent, so I will say you can at least reasonably deduce that they have to be at least like a month or two old, uh, um, or at like the bare bones probably like a couple weeks. But again, in jungle heat encased in warm organic webbing, they still should have rotted enough. Because I will say you also notice there's no smell in the air either of rot. So even if they hadn't rotted to the bone in the jungle, it still should. This place should still smell like a place where two fairly large-looking creatures had died.
Hmm.
I mean, it
You,
could just be completely sealed in the cocoon.
But that's why I pointed out that this webbing appears relatively thin. It's just that there's a lot of it.
so what I would like to do is just kind of, you guys, I kind of have an idea. It's kind of stupid, but so guys against me opening the cocoon.
Hmm. What would be the points? Out of curiosity, what are you aiming for?
Well, I'm just trying to find out like what exactly is in this thing.
Looks like a bird.
But I mean, just because it looks like a bird doesn't mean it is a bird.
I guess that's true. We would have to. We can't be certain unless we know if it sounds like a bird as well. Because you know
Is
what
there
they
any
say,
way
if
that
it looks like a bird, sounds like a bird.
I mean, a lot of times bats can sound like birds, especially if they're fruit bats.
Yeah, but they don't really look like birds.
I mean, from far away, they can look like small birds.
Greylog?
is there any chance that these birds are even still alive?
Well, that's why I wanted to check
Hence why they
by.
haven't rotted.
Well, that's why I wanted to check by opening the cocoon.
Yeah, at the very least, you haven't seen any movement or heard any sounds.
Maybe.
I could easily open it with like a fingernail. It's very thin, and you guys are there to back me up in case something decides to attack.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Don't think this is throwing the idea out completely, but maybe let's do a little more investigating before we do that in case something shows up.
Well, better to do it during the day than when it starts to get dark.
I completely agree with that. I mean, we
I
don't know
didn't
what.
say wait till dark. I said do a little more looking. There's a couple more things I wish to try.
All right, be my guest. I'm going to keep on looking this over and seeing if I can figure it out. Just come back to me when you decide it's all right.
Very well. Okay, so here's what I was thinking. Some interesting ideas. I'm going to cast Detect Magic. That uses
Okay.
one of my slots. And we're going to be near that little wall there. We're going to see if any of this appears magic in any way.
Avaben, as you approach the wall of the mountain, you close your eyes and stretch out your elvish senses to pick up even the most minute arcana in the region around you. From the webbing and from the mountain, surprisingly, you don't pick up any trace of magic. However, you do get 4 blips behind you.
Can you
Turning
look
your
behind
head
him?
Turning your attention in the direction they're coming from, you realize they're coming from the cocoons. 2 blips for each one. And the specific magic you're picking up is Objuration, which I'll say, to put it into a more of a context, you would know to be associated with things like runic magic.
Interesting. Also, according to this, the spell is blocked by 1 foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, and a thin sheet of lead, 3 feet of wood and dirt.
Yes.
Can Avaven tell where it is being blocked? And
Yeah.
use that to basically walk around the mountain and see if there's 1 foot of stone behind the webbing in every direction.
Mhm.
Basically, can he tell if it's being blocked?
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll say that again, you can't necessarily get super close to the one of the like the part of it that's hit by the webbing, but with the range of your detect magic, that should be a non-issue anyway. As you kind of pace the clearing, yeah, your radar sense only reaches about a foot into the mountain from any direction.
What about when does it reach only about a foot past the webbing?
Yes, as far as you can tell.
So there's solid stone behind the webbing. It would appear that that there are no entrances, at least no spots less than a foot thick around this mountain.
I could go through the river entrance and investigate that.
It might be worth taking a quick peek around in there, maybe. Maybe not go too far, so as to not leave the group behind.
Oh, of course. Just want to make sure that, see where it goes, what's there. Is it
Alright.
safe? Like, is it safe for the rest of you to come?
Alright, I'll help you. By the way, detect magic should last about 10 minutes.
Well, is it
Oh.
big enough for people to actually get through, or would you actually have to get into the water?
You would definitely have to get into the water one way or the other, but by your best estimate, it's possible that it gets narrower the further you go, but at the very least, it looks like the river is just big enough for 2 people to swim through. Although, again, it may get more narrow the further you get.
Might be risky to have to try and swim up into it. Especially if we might not be able to see where we're going.
I can take care of myself as far as getting in. I don't know about anyone else at the moment.
I'm thinking maybe it might be worth...
I
I think it might be
I
worth
can
exploring Asari's plan, because
yeah.
I'm
If you guys want
detecting
to,
runic magic inside those cocoons.
that's interesting. All right.
Get some
Paul-
other stuff.
Paul,
Let's
anything from
see,
you?
Objects.
Ooh,
Who?
Oh,
sorry. My like thumb just
ow.
my pointer finger and my thumb just kind of seems stuck right now.
Oh,
Oh,
no, you all
that's
right?
trigger finger.
Yeah, there you go. Got away.
Okay.
But well, as far as I don't think you should touch it with your finger. So I mean, can I could always
I mean,
I can always see about cutting it myself.
well, I mean, I've got other things that I can do. I've
I
got
could
this
probably
dagger.
shoot an arrow at it too.
Well,
That
no,
might
no,
split it open.
that's really not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take out the dagger that's on the side of my leg.
I think it'd be best if I did it, but you feel like you want to do it, then I won't stop you.
Well,
Why don't you both do one? There's two of them.
Seems a bit risky.
I mean, I just
Doubling
feel,
the chances something feels it.
yeah, and just
Yeah, but
wanting.
if
Not to
it
mention if it's
notices, it's going to think there's this huge group of people here. So would it risk coming,
I mean,
or
from what
would
we
it wait
understand
for
of
us
this
to come
thing,
to
it
it
may
where
just
it
see a
ambush
large group
us?
of people as a buffet.
Or in a way for us to come to it and ambush us. It is supposedly supposed to be intelligent.
I'm just gonna start opening the
Yeah, just do one
cocoon.
for now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start opening the cocoon.
Okay. Sorry,
Do
make
you-
a strength check.
Ooh, I am not. I'm
Well,
not
as you
good
run
at
in
that.
near now,
Gonna
the
have
cocoon.
it's gonna have the short sword ready in case it, like, I don't know, snaps her up or something.
Alright,
Uh,
noted.
strength is not my strong suit, so I rolled a 5.
It is not your strong suit.
No, that's why I said it like that.
Avabin, you cautiously pull a short sword free and level it at the cocoon as Asari pulls out a dagger and begins to hack at part of it to try and expose whatever's beneath the cocoon. But Asari, after a few frustrated seconds of trying to carve your way down, you're only able to get about like 3 centimeters deep before not only can you not cut any further, your dagger is stuck.
Oh, look at
Hey,
Paul. All right, you can do
Vaben's
it.
gonna come over and is like, oh dear, let me do it for you.
All right, but I'm going to stay right where I'm at so I can get a first look.
Vaben's gonna do the strength check.
Roll strength.
Is this? Oh, that's a check.
Yeah, it's just a top
So
number.
It's just a
I only did a
strength check.
little bit better with a 10.
Why aren't we
If
letting
it was a
the
save, I
strongest
actually
person here
probably
do
would have
this?
done all right.
Well, my thing is, I am like immune to being diseased, right? And I was like, this is disease. I was like, but I was like, you know what? Hey, y'all want to do it?
I have 2 attack actions. Can I double the roll?
Unfortunately, this is not an attack action. Avabin, you swagger up to Asari, kind of roll your shoulders, and start plunging the dagger down, and you make it about another 2 centimeters past Asari's 3 before you can't
Hold on. She rolled a 5. I rolled a 10. I should get at least twice as far as she did.
Are you saying it's dumb?
Because I know if I say any more, you're going to say, well, it's like that many centimeters deep, I should be able to see what's on the other side.
No, I promise I won't.
Right. Like I said, Paul, would
Alright,
you like
Vaben's
to?
going to shoot it with an arrow.
I don't think that's necessary.
Vaben's going to shoot it with an arrow, aiming to. How is it like attached to the rest of webbing? Is it like is it like a drop, or is it like kind of all over the place?
Basically, whatever these cocoons are built around, it's completely draping them, and then those drapes are used as anchor points to then form these walls and ceilings and flooring of webbing that stretches to the mountain.
Okay, so here's what Vaben's going to do. Vaben's going to use basically get up close and graze them with an arrow so that it splits the cocoon open.
Okay. While you're doing that, Paul Greylog, anything?
I'm mostly just sitting back laughing at the fact that I've been always saying people don't listen and think things through and are impatient. And here he is doing exactly what he gets onto the rest of us for.
No, sir. Who was it that said we should not do this immediately?
And yet, who's the one doing the most, trying to, like...
Because
thinking that they're better?
because we agreed as a group that we were going to do it already?
You're still being overly impatient.
Nobody's going to convince anybody. Move on.
Well, I
Either
was
way.
just
I mean,
gonna
there's
say
nothing
that
to convince.
Asari was trying to tell Avaven that it wasn't necessary, and then call for Paul's help. But that's up to you. If you still want to do it, I'm not going to stop you.
I'm just
Fine.
waiting.
Paul can take an attempt. If he
Okay.
doesn't get it, then
Yeah,
I'm
we're not going to
using-
get it.
if he doesn't get it, then I'm using the bow,
Okay,
which
Alright.
can
that's
generate
fair.
a lot more force than our arms can.
I think that's very fair.
All right, Paul,
Okay.
it's up to you.
Well, Paul's gonna walk up to the.
I mean,
cocoon.
decision-wise, not like.
I know, but
Probably better at strength, anyways.
honestly, not that much. But Paul will walk up to the cocoon and first. Oh man, I was like, should I just be reckless?
Oh God, we were just having conversations about that.
Well, I don't care about that, so. Hold on. So wait. Oh wait. Ababen said that there was magic on this, right?
Yes.
Inside, I think it was specifically inside of it, right?
Yeah, there's 2 blips of magic from each cocoon. That is abjuration magic or runic magic.
But it was, you said it was inside the cocoon, right?
Yeah.
Never mind. That's be.
But the cocoon itself is not magic.
Yeah, as far as you can tell, the webbing and cocoon and stuff do not give off any magical aura.
It seems as though doing a simple strength check. So I guess I would like to use my long sword and try to do like a downward cut. Get real open, nice and open.
Okay. And I guess for my reference, any preference on where you're striking?
I'd probably start close to where the others 2 started to kind of get a point in, and then go downwards.
Roll strength with advantage.
Oh, what? I didn't get advantage?
No.
That's how little progress Asari made.
But I think you started a different. I can definitely see you I'm gonna start my own hole.
It would have been funny, honestly. But all right. So yeah, strength with advantage, Paul.
Yeah, 18.
All right. Paul, pulling out your longsword and measuring your impact point as Avaben readies an arrow in the event you fail. You pull back, cleave down, and there's this horrifying, meaty thunk that echoes around the clearing and sends a shiver up all of your spines. But, Asari, you see, or rather you hear, a clatter as your dagger falls to the ground, and Paul has cleaved a small, fleshy opening into the cocoon. Asari...
Does the smell of rot immediately come out of the cocoon?
I would like to look inside the cocoon and see what I can see.
I think it fell
Yep.
out.
Yeah, I was just about to get to you.
Okay.
Asari, as you retrieve your dagger, and Avaben, you brace yourself for the expected smell of rot, but to your surprise, nothing. Paul, as you push aside some of the meaty flesh that's still hanging around the cocoon, Asari, you peer inside curiously, and you're met with stone.
What kind of stone?
I will say with a... I'm going to kind of lump this in with your previous investigation check.
Mm-hmm.
As you kind of curiously look at it, are you willing to touch?
You know what? Why the fuck not?
Pressing your fingers delicately to the stone in what appears to be the center of the cocoon, it's definitely carved, whatever it is. It has that kind of smoothness to it of carved stone. It is unsettlingly warm to the touch, although you expect that's a combination of baking in the tropical sun beneath a flesh cocoon.
Yeah.
I will also say that on closer inspection, you do notice a few sloshes of what appear to be paint on the stone, although there is not yet a big enough opening to see what that connects to. But yeah, you can see beneath the cocoon is carved stone with paint on it that is warm to the touch.
Do you think we should pull it out?
Okay, so the paint is warm to touch. What is the carving of? Like, what do I see? What the shape is?
I will say, Paul, you did succeed on the strength check. Are you willing to just uncase this cocoon entirely?
I'm willing to touch this.
All right. Asari, as you questions start running through your mind, of Aben, yours as well. Greylog, you watch with what I like to imagine would at least be some degree of impressness, as Paul, with a bit of lever action on his sword, manages to, like an unsettling candy bar, manages to carve an opening on the flesh cocoon, and with a few swipes of your blade, Paul, while there's a bunch of gross webbing stuck to it, you are able to completely release what's beneath the cocoon from its fleshy prison. Although, Aben, you watch as, of course, this sends vibrations running up the webbing that connects to the mountain.
Well, we're gonna see if anything happens from that, but in the meantime... By the way, has it been 10 minutes yet?
Not yet. I'll let you know whenever it wears off.
Okay, so is this object what the magic is coming off?
I will let you know as soon as I'm done describing it. Paul, as you cut the last of the flesh and set whatever's beneath free, Asari, I imagine this gives you a bit of a thrill. You all realize it's a statue. Carved stone, covered in paint. The paint is not organized, though, at least not in a way you would consider traditionally organized. It's almost like graffiti. There's these markings in a strange language none of you speak, dotting.
I can read all languages.
Innately, or is that something you have to activate?
No, innately. It's a feat.
Did you get the Warlock Eldritch Incantation?
I did. I can read any written language.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to you.
The Elvish, Halfling, Sylvan, Thieves.
No, I checked. None of you can speak this naturally. I checked.
Yeah, like
I'm just like, I was just noticing earlier. Well, Raven knows a lot of languages.
I think Rangers, yeah, just because they get it as their natural enemy thing.
And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matthew.
Oh, no worries. Like no, that is actually something important to note. So I will thank you for that. Looking at the statue itself, it is still generally what you thought it to be, just statue instead of body. You see that it's a massive statue, about 8 feet tall, of a Gigi bird, similar to the ones that inhabit Paul's homeland, which, again, I will note is interesting because that specific breed does not typically inhabit tropical regions. You can see that it's positioned in such a way to where it looks like it would be in a fight with the other cocoon, which I imagine you all can guess might have a statue beneath it as well. And Avaben, you notice that the magic you were picking up is coming from its eyes, which this one has 2 emeralds embedded in to act as its eyes.
We're gonna pick up the statue and inspect the eyes.
Well, bear in mind, this is a pretty big, but if you wish, you can pull the emeralds out.
Can Avaben inspect the eyes first?
Roll investigation.
Smart move.
Okay, I got a 13 on investigation.
looking up at the statue, because yeah, you would kind of have to hop and like not obviously completely embrace it, but you would have to like kind of hop up onto it to reach the eye sockets. But looking up at it, you can see the emeralds are kind of loosely embedded in. Like it looks like they would just come out freely if given the opportunity. And from the looks of it, you don't see anything that would obviously indicate a booby trap. At least not one that would come off from pulling them out.
Does anybody understand these markings?
I do.
Greylog, investigating the writing, you see the markings are strange. You're able to read them, but the way they're written is still kind of odd to you. As mentioned, they're kind of just graffitied onto the stone of the statue. On closer inspection, it almost looks like it was done via just like simple paintbrush. But more than that, you notice the writing is very... The best way I can describe it in the way Greylog would think of it would be almost childlike. It's very simple. The phrasing is very like cutesy, but you pick up that written on the statue is various. It appears to have been written by a variety of people, but all of it more or less says the same thing. Doorway. However, you notice one emerald green marking on the head of the statue instead says, "Don't fight."
Maybe we need the other statue to figure this out.
Yeah, because I will be translating for the others.
Yeah, I figured.
Let's uncover the other statue.
Now, since Paul had so much success with it, why doesn't he give it a try?
Paul,
And I would give him guidance.
Cadence.
all right, Paul, if you're
Like,
willing, make a strength check.
Yeah, I'll draw an imaginary X for where he needs to hit for guidance.
Imaginary X.
Like-
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of like drawing in the air, like right there.
Yeah,
All
like X marks the spot.
Paul, strength check with guidance.
Careful not to say that too much. That crazy captain might think we're pirates.
That's pretty good.
Me booty.
You guys can see Eric kind of roll his eyes.
Oh, I forgot you were here.
No, please. This is actually rather fascinating to watch. Never seen people like you at work in person before.
Yeah, well, whenever you've been beating your head against a literal wall, sometimes you just gotta take an action.
You remind me of my sister.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Well, you know, some people, they don't have the best relationship with their family.
He kind of gives you a sympathetic nod, and if he suspects anything, he wisely decides not to pry. Paul?
Yes. So, I'm gonna first. I mean, we've already kind of worry about the whole alerting. It's not gonna be a problem anymore. So I'm gonna touch the cocoon. I'm just gonna kind of feel it.
Paul, as Greylog starts egging you on to strike precisely, you pause momentarily and feel the webbing. It's warm to the touch. Fleshy. You can see it leaves... I was going to say, it leaves a little bit of red residue like blood on your fingers. And indeed, as you kind of grip some of the webbing between your fingers, It's actually not as sticky as you would have thought. It's not unsticky by any means, but it's more that it's like thick and goopy. It feels less like a spider web and more almost like, imagine like a little bit of a stickier Play-Doh. And as you wrap it between your fingers, indeed, you do feel a very low pulsating between your fingers.
Well, to know that now, but I'm going to. I would like to have my Periton claw at it first.
Roll strength on behalf of your Periton.
Yeah, he's got better strength than I do.
Oh yeah, big animal. That scans.
Not even a big animal, it's a medium.
I mean, big animal in the sense that it's like a beast.
Yeah, no, but
So,
well, I rolled.
is the webbing alive, technically?
It seems to have blood and a heartbeat.
Seems it might be connected to whatever this creature we're trying to go after.
Before we finish attacking it, if Paul's willing to wait, could we try to communicate with it?
If you wish.
Why?
How are you going to communicate with it?
Well, if it's
It doesn't have a
alive,
mouth.
Well,
Yeah.
other ways to communicate.
I was saying, how do you plan on communicating with it?
Do I have that? I'm looking for one of my spells. Everything I have is attack based at the moment.
You're getting ready for combat. You're like, we're about to fucking fight.
Like, can I just focus on it? Because I am a druid, and see if I can't communicate through psychic energy.
That's like his
Theoretically.
go-to.
Well,
Can I just feel it? I'm a druid.
Roll
Is that
Arcana.
is that like keen mind for druid? I'm a druid, so can I feel its natural energy?
17.
As mentioned last time you tried this webbing is almost like a null zone. It doesn't respond to your druidic call at all, as if it doesn't consider itself part of the nature around you, despite clearly being organic.
Maybe not our kind of organic.
Go ahead, I tried.
Well, you might have very much. You're not gonna do much. I rolled a 4, so 7.
Paul giving a signal to your Periton, it lunges at the webbing and begins to claw and jab at it with its antlers. But while it is able to pull itself free without getting itself stuck, thankfully, it did nothing more than claw at the surface, leaving visible gouges in the webbing, but not deep enough to see what's beneath.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give it a shot?
You may need to just cut at it.
You might guess.
Yeah, I'll pull out my spear, and I'll just cut it with this spear.
Roll strength.
Is that the spear we thought was the spear of Ares or something?
Or the one
This is just a regular spear.
I don't think we ever got that spear, but I know he created one.
Well, no, we actually do have the real spear. Yeah, the champion gave it
the champion
to you,
gave it to you because he felt like you earned it.
but it's just a regular spear.
Yeah, as far as we know, now that we know, it'd be shit.
Or at
That's
the
a
very least,
16.
it's not actually magical in any way.
And one more time, Greylog.
16.
All right. Greylog, positioning your spear, you begin to, again, similar to what you'd seen Paul do, using it as sort of like a gangway. You push your body weight against the spear, and almost like all of you get this like nauseating image, like almost like Greylog is setting a boil. And as he carves through it, it cracks, and the webbing begins to slough and fall. As with the first one already broken, it's losing anchor points rapidly. And as Greylog, you crack open the second cocoon, Avaben, you watch as all of the webbing that was connecting it to the mountain begins to fall and just basically form this loose pile at the base of the mountain with nothing on the statues anchoring it anymore.
Well, if something was feeling that, it certainly knows something's here now.
Greylog, you see this statue is very similar to the other one. However, it's a little smaller. Its wingspan is a little bigger. Basically, as if those it's like a 2-foot difference. This statue about 6 feet to the other one's 8 foot. But the extra 2 feet seems to have gone to its wingspan. And I will say, Avaben, the writing on this is still illegible to you. However, it does feel a little more familiar to you. The best way I can describe it is like as if you saw somebody communicating in pictures. That is symbology you would recognize, but you don't know the specific context of it. But Greylog, with your feet, you identify this one, which I will note is primarily red markings as opposed to green. Most of it is the same. Those kind of childish scrawlings that just say doorway, doorway, doorway. But on the crest, you see "Don't fight" written again, and instead of emeralds, this one has rubies in the eye sockets.
So there doesn't
And
appear
both
to
you.
be.
Sorry, go ahead.
There doesn't seem to be any other indications of what to do in these things.
Not that you can obviously tell. All you've got to go on is the statues themselves and the writing.
Well, that gives me an idea. Both of them have both said "don't fight," and both the statues are facing each other as if they were about to fight each other, correct?
Yes.
Can we try to reposition the statues, like turning them away from each other?
You can certainly try.
I would like to try that.
Are they
Okay.
articulated?
You can see now that the cocoons have been cut free, it's sort of like Easter Island heads. There's the statue itself and then a small circular base that is kind of embedded into the ground. And Greylog, as you start giving kind of an experimental push, it's heavy, but it does seem like you could move it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to turn them around so it looks like they're more back to back, like defending each other more than fighting each other.
Okay.
See if that has any
Okay.
like
Available
change.
will help them.
All right. Sorry, Paul.
Has no objections. I guess he'll just watch.
Well, there is 2 statues. You can move the other one while they move the first one.
Yeah, I'll help do that.
Yeah.
All right. Greylog and Paul, roll strength with advantage.
Yeah, I'm not rolling for strength. I have a -1. That's not happening.
Very string bean dragonborn.
She only looks beefy, but she's not actually beefy.
It's all body fat.
Yeah.
15.
All right, 15. Paul?
17.
Paul and Asari on one side, Greylog and Avaben on the other. The two of you kind of pushing the statue by their wings, careful to keep one of you on either side so that the statue starts to tip either way. The other person can catch it and push it back the right way.
Doesn't
The
sound
four
like
of you.
stone scraping on stone like that.
Mm-hmm. The four of you manage to turn the statues away from each other and position them so that by Greylog's direction, they are back to back, protecting each other rather than battling. The four of you step back as you slide them into place. The emeralds begin to glow. The rubies, the same. Avaben, you see the rest of the webbing beginning to pop and cave in as the mountain begins to shift.
Was I right?
Rocks and dust begin to fall from the mountain as a massive 3-foot thick doorway begins to open.
Holy shit!
Thick
That's
doorway.
right!
I'm gonna
What is
give
that?
Greylog a hug. Look at you, junior detective.
Seemed like a pretty logical conclusion.
Oh, shut up. He did great.
And they don't. That was practically a compliment from Avaben.
Eric gives you a pat on the shoulder, Paul. Wow. Well, he kind of squints, looking into the darkness of the doorway. You all planning an expedition, then?
Sorry, grins at that. Oh, and I didn't bring my duster.
Yes, well, we should probably. I think we should probably gather up a bit of a. What's the word? Posse before we go in.
Very well. I'm willing to
Well,
keep
the
one.
Talk to
captain would like to
Taldana.
know.
She's gonna want to come.
Yeah, Avaben wants to inspect the door.
Make a perception check. Since the interior is dark, I will not give you disadvantage on this. Aye.
If you guys like, while y'all are looking at this, I can run back to camp and let the captains know that
It's
we
a-
found the entry.
Yeah, and let Anna know. She's gonna want to come.
I'll let everyone know.
Yeah.
I thought there would be a single person left back at base camp.
Also, it's perception, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So 17.
Avaben.
Keep in mind, I have a plus 12, so
yeah, I get you.
my dice are being stinky.
I've been there. Avaben, peering past the stone doorway, you look into what this webbing seems so intent on hiding the entrance to. Looking inside, it appears at immediate, just instinctual glance to be an unremarkable cave. However, as that thought catches up with you, of course it hits you. Cave. Looking around, you see, rather than a completely untraversable cavern of stalactites and mites and such, it's this relatively smooth, walkable terrain. Not quite carved like there was people supposed to be here, but it's not like the Underdark you're used to, where the terrain gets super rough and untraversable at times. It's this very shallow cave in the volcano. You hear the sound of running water echoing from within. You realize whatever the point of origin of the river is must be here. And looking around, you see the cave leading from the doorway goes down into a tunnel that opens up very quickly into what you can see at a glance appears to be a completely hidden cove. Near the entryway, only a stone's throw away from you, you can see several barrels that are kind of molded with some black spots on them. And You can see some distant flickers of what appear to be torchlight, and just in the distance, beyond, like where your dark vision begins to fail you, you can see the part of the tunnel that opens out into a cove, although there's still a walkable stone place to go. You can see a large mass of wood floating in the water, likely a ship, although you cannot make out the details of it beyond wood.
It would appear that there's some kind of hidden cove in here.
Hmm.
There might be a ship down there. I can barely see it. I dare not go in by myself, to be honest.
I'd really rather you not go alone.
I
You
go
all have
get
the right
the
idea.
captains, or
Yeah, go tell
should
the
we just go
captain.
ourselves?
Go tell the captains.
I'm willing to help keep watch over this place. Your friend is right. Nobody should go in there alone. You said you saw a ship in there?
Possibly. I saw wood. It could be a ship. It could
And that-
also be a giant wooden house, for all I know.
Well, at the very least, that's a good observation, man. If our target is indeed a pirate, we need to be wary of any hidden ships. Perhaps this is where your friend has been shacked up, hiding
I
as he
didn't really
pillages the
call him a
coast.
friend. I didn't even know the
I
guy.
don't even know him.
Figure of speech, my friends, figure of speech. Point is, let's be
I
wary.
don't want you getting any wrong ideas. I would like to leave this island with my head still attached.
Relax. I see things a different way than the captain. Let's put it that way.
More level-headed.
Someone has to keep her on track.
I was going to put it reasonable.
You all run back and fetch her. I and anyone who wants to stay will stay here and keep an eye on things. And tell the captain the lieutenant says leave the artillery, just bring infantry. If everyone's traversing on foot, it's gonna be nightfall by the time the rest of the expedition force gets here anyway. The last thing we need is to take all night with it.
Understood. I got the message loud and clear. And he will wild shape.
Make sure to tell all of them too. Her, our captain, and I'm sure the merchant would like to have a look. He seemed, if the thing that's stalking him has something to do with this, he'll want rid of it.
Yes, good idea. Not a man stays behind.
I will give
Also,
a
I'm going to
falcon
tell you.
screech of confirmation.
Are we all going back, or is it just Greylock going back?
Right
Yeah,
now it's just
thank you.
Greylog, but yeah, anyone who wants to go back is free.
Avivin's gonna go back to make sure to gather his group. He don't want to leave them by themselves.
Okay. Paul?
Then he's gonna tell them, if anything, red comes out of there, I suggest you retreat rather than try to fight the monster by yourselves.
Understood. Retreat, regroup, wait for reinforcements. I'll pass the order to the men as soon as they return from scouting. Leave it to you all to accomplish with a group of 4 what my men couldn't do with a group of 20.
Imagine what we could do with 5.
But guess if you're going back instead of going back on foot, I don't plan on going back myself. So if you wish, you could take my steed.
Well, that will certainly be faster.
The Perryton bows its head to you, Avibin.
Okay. I don't know exactly. Has Avivin ever ridden an animal of any kind before?
It's not super common where you're from. And
I'd imagine the forests make it very hard to ride a horse or something.
yeah.
Well, you don't have to worry about the forest. You're just gonna fly over the forest.
And sorry?
knows how to do it itself because it doesn't know
I'm
how to write it.
gonna stay with I'm gonna stay at the
At the
site.
entrance. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And Avaben, as you kind of awkwardly climb aboard and give your proclamation that you hope the Perryton knows how to handle itself. Whether it's in response to your statement or simply from an unspoken order from Paul, it takes to the air and begins to lift you over the tree line and fly back to the base
Hear
camp.
Raven go, wow.
Greylog, you take off after them in eagle form.
I imagine it's like that scene from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah. How to Train Your Periton.
I mean, they look pretty similar.
Right. Paul Asari, staying here with Eric, who is in the process of getting reports back from his scouts and passing on Avaben's suggestions to them. Is there anything the two of you would like to do while you wait for your companions? As mentioned, assuming they stay with the expedition force, they likely will arrive at nightfall, so you have a few hours to kill.
I'm just gonna look around, study the artifacts and the other stuff, see if what I can figure out.
All right, Paul.
But now I'm just thinking, I'll go explore by myself the entire cave.
Yeah, just do the whole dungeon. All the whole expedition force gets here and it's just like, all right, here's the villain. Also, the curse is dealt with.
And I found the treasure.
Yeah, and treasure found. We're good to go.
Freaking speed running D&D.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, there's
I
the speed
bet you
build.
I bet you there have been people who made it their mission to speed run like one of the modules for D&D.
I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a speed build. You just be like, boom! I literally run through the entire dungeon.
I've actually done that before.
Yeah, like in 6
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, I've done that before. It's great.
You just become the Flash.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, essentially.
All right. So what you doing, bud?
I guess he's just gonna keep a watchful eye. I mean, if this creature if this creature can sense these things have been cut, he doesn't want this thing to come out.
Okay. And Asari, if you're going to investigate the artifacts, roll history.
Ooh,
And don't worry, I'm taking your archaeologist background feature into account. The history rolls for something specific.
Ooh, okay. I have a +8. Oh, come on. Okay, not bad. I rolled
Better than me.
a
I've got a -1 in my history.
history. 23.
Looking over the statues now that they've been cut free, I'll presume you're aware of Greylog's magical abilities. So you understand why he was able to read them, but you're interested in being able to read them for yourself. And you actually notice the same thing that Avaben did. The language is somewhat familiar to you, just only in the most base pictorial sense. But as you study the artifacts closer, your archaeology study actually comes in handy. These are familiar to you. You've heard stories of distant lands hosting strange saurian folk, lizard people. This specific type are noted to be very unusual. Kind of buggy eyes, curly tails, and the mysterious ability to change their appearance at will.
They're chameleons.
Yes. These mysterious chameleon saurians are known among scholars as the Savant Keen.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Why is that sounding so familiar?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Loomy.
Coming from a distant empire known as the Phantasmakin, they are not known to be native to the region, but this artifact is unmistakably Savantkin in origin. This graffiti writing style is the way they communicate. The Savantkin do not perceive the world in sights and sounds. They perceive the world by color and by feeling. A happy person is not a person with a smile on their face. A happy person is a person who feels happy, and to them may look a different color than they do to everyone else. The way they see the world is strange, and it tends to reflect in their behavior. But because of that, they tend to see things that other people may miss. As far as you can tell, they built these statues and painted them. From the looks of it, it's almost like they let their children write on them as something of a ritual. What the purpose of these is, given that they opened up the doorway, it appears to be a gate of some kind. Although what it would have been built for beyond the obvious, you don't know. These statues are definitely older than any stories of cursed treasure on being on this island. Whatever's down there is older than the reason you guys are here. For better or for worse. You also would know, I'll say as a side note, that given their abilities, the Savantkin are quite talented at hiding. They can disguise themselves convincingly as anyone, almost doppelgangers in and of themselves. They can read minds, and they can turn completely invisible. And you realize, at least for yourself, but for Avaben, from a player perspective, you realize the reason none of you but Greylog could read this is because, likely because of them living on this island for some time, their language has changed from the native tongues they speak. Their written language appears to be a mixture of Draconic and Sylvan. Recognizable slightly to those who can read them, but differentiating enough to where it's not completely coherent, especially with the, again, somewhat sloppy writing of the children.
Interesting.
But that is what you were able to discern from your archaeological dig.
So, who's here with me, Paul?
Yeah, Paul's with you, just keeping watch over the base.
I'll call for Paul. Paul, could you,
Paul?
come over... Yeah, could you, come over here for a minute?
Sure.
So, I have been looking all of this over and think we might have a problem.
More than what we're already in.
Well, I mean, whatever's down here is really old. Yeah, it was here even before the treasure was here.
Oh, really? I didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
really, really, really old. And it can disguise itself very easily and very well. More, like, better than Greg can. No offense to Greg. And they can go invisible, so as far as we know, it might even still be in the room with us, watching. Or it could be one of our companions, if we not know it. I mean, it could be the merchant for all we know.
Hold on. I just realized.
Okay.
No, I mean, this is out of character.
Okay.
Prototype? This inspired by Prototype?
I haven't played that, so I can't say.
Oh, wow. I think you like it. there any defining factors as creatures?
Would I know that, Matthew, based on my studies?
I would say the Savankin are very reclusive people, and bear in mind they're a isolated group from an already very isolated empire. So they're isolationists among isolationists. But I will say from what you do know, their mimicry itself is pretty much perfect. However, I will say, to throw you something of a bone, given that the way they see the world is largely influenced by the emotions of those around them, you would know that, or rather, I can't say you would know, but you would basically reasonably suspect, it's speculated among archaeologists, that they would find negative emotions to be very unpleasant. So perhaps that could be used to drive one out of hiding if there is enough negativity in the air around them. But that's merely a guess.
I mean, I don't mean to sound like a total hippie, but I mean, we could just, give bad vibes that would draw it out. It doesn't like negativity. So let's just, is Iverman still here?
No, they've been railing with them twice.
Yeah, so she'll just say, so basically when Iverman gets back, it should be alright.
Honestly, I feel like he would not comply just for the sake of it.
Stubbornness counts as a negative feeling, I think.
Yeah.
It's like negativity, there you go. But,
Ivan
What counts
sneezes.
with you?
stubbornness.
Ivan just starts
I don't know,
sneezing.
sometimes stubbornness
we're
can
going.
be... Sometimes stubbornness can be good. It's kind of a neutral.
Depends.
Yeah, it's contextual. But anyway.
But, I'm not... Negativities aren't really my strong suits. I'll leave that up to you guys.
What are you trying to say, Paul? That we're negative?
From what I've seen, y'all definitely y'all definitely have that, you have your moments.
He's not exactly easy to get on with, He doesn't make it easy either.
Yes, I mean, some of the things he's done has, not been, even though I don't care for it, but I don't think he's all bad.
No, he's a brilliant tracker, and he has good ideas. His attitude needs to change.
I feel his attitude more. I guess this could be more towards that to to everyone in our whole party besides Flower and Fall. I mean, y'all are very quick to violence.
I've always been like that, so no, maybe it's just a dragon in me or something.
You ever notice how when she gets whenever she gets criticized, she always has an excuse?
I mean,
I never said she was perfect.
That's people for you.
Yeah.
When you get criticized, you out of character. They.
I mean, if there's no criticism there, then yeah.
Oh boy.
But it is something that I would like to work on. Patience.
It can be very beneficial. I mean, I guess it's you weren't really there, but you met a gang of people who were pretending to be zombies, and they were.
We were there for that.
I was there for that. I remember that.
That's when we first showed up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I recall that.
I was a giant dire wolf. She was on my back.
Yeah, I was thinking just me and But it started off with me and
Yeah, that was how the session started. So yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Proceed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all definitely. At least I don't know. It seemed odd and seemed like it was unreasonable to just simply murder what, even if they were said zombies, to if we could get answers. But they were, I guess. There was no harm done, but found out that wasn't the case. But either way,
I guess when you live somewhere as harsh as the woods, it doesn't exactly you know, give you enough time to know what's, you know, socially reasonable.
I don't know about social reasonable. Just maybe think before you act. But I mean, at the moment, you don't live in that place anymore. You have, well, you kind of stay in places, all different kinds of places, but it's simply the idea of think before you act, essentially, but more just, I guess, it's hard to explain, I guess, but just simply violence would be the best, would be the best course of action very rarely.
That was a weird way to word that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Pretty
but
much violence isn't the answer.
yeah.
Well, I'd say never the answer. It'd be rare.
Rarely.
But either way, back to the point at hand. Negativity, as you said, like I said, not my strong suit, so I will.
I mean, even if I like clocked you in the face right now, you wouldn't be totally pissed at me.
Hmm,
There's that violence.
This
Like if I were to punch you right now in the fucking face, that wouldn't piss you off.
probably not.
At this, she seems surprised. Really? Why?
Well, I mean, especially since you just explained it to me, I mean, first thought comes to mind is that you're simply doing that to try to get me into a pissed off, trying to help me in a sense, but so in a sense it doesn't have as much as, I guess it doesn't have as much effect, but I mean, I would assume if you did clock me in the face, I would assume you had a good reason.
She looks like she doesn't know what to think about that. That's very strange. I've never heard of that before. I mean,
I mean, I trust your judgment, so as I trust Ivan's and Greylocks and the twins, of
I
course.
mean, why? You barely know us.
Well, I have been observing, and like I said, you all have your moments of questionableness, but most of the time I've seen that you at least try to help when you can and when it seems right. So, at least
how
from cursory glance, I can't really say that you are someone I would not be willing to help along. Like, I mean, right now I'm on the mission to help Greylock grow stronger to save my father. I guess in a sense, bring him back.
Really hope you can do it. I mean, necromancy is a whole different monster than what he's used to.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And he does have a tendency to sometimes make promises he can't break.
mm,
Not intentionally, of course. He has the purest of hearts,
yeah,
but
I get that.
it's that whole doing things before thinking about it thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, for now at least, unless he gives me any reason, I will plan on trusting in his judgment and will simply help him along the way when I can to be capable of bringing him back. But
Well, I hope it's worth it for whatever it's worth.
so I guess the only identifying factors would be it doesn't like negative emotions.
Yeah, it responds. Would it be safe to assume that it responds negatively to negative emotions?
That's the only lead you got.
Yeah. The only lead I've got is that it reacts very terribly to negative emotions. So maybe once we're all in the same place, we can, you know, stage something to see if we can't draw it out.
Well,
I mean, all I've got to do is start an argument about being, Bretonian, and that's enough.
I wouldn't. I would hope you don't take it too far, at least. But I guess we will wait for the rest of the party and see what happens.
I think that's the best, is that we wait for everyone to be here and see what we can do to draw this thing out before delving in. Because I don't want to be cornered.
I find it so funny that they never consider the idea of, talking to it.
I mean, yeah, it's sentient, but like it's also dangerous.
So the Slovakian is hardly what I would consider dangerous.
Man, Greylog ain't even here.
Speaking of, Greylog and Avaben. Avaben, clutching onto your feathered mount as best you can. The Periton, to its credit, its flight is a little bumpier than you'd like, but the two of you are able to return to base camp without falling to your deaths, which is, always a good thing.
Definitely.
As Greylog, you touch down and shift your form, and Avaben, you touch ground and dismount. You all and Ollie are the first to approach, although you can see the trifecta of captains on the other side of camp already seeing you arrive and making their way over.
Bear will give you all a hug as he greets them.
Which he enthusiastically returns and kisses you on the cheek. Welcome back. You find anything?
Oh yeah.
Actually, yeah, we did.
We found the entrance.
Yes, we found the door and it is open now. We can enter whenever we want.
Oh, that's great. Ollie gives you a smile and pats you on the shoulder. Nice job.
Oh, what the hell, Vaven will pull her in too.
She kind of giggles but reciprocates. And Greylog, as the elves embrace, you see the three captains of this journey arrive. Clavok, Thaun, and Bowman.
before he forgets, he will address Captain Bowman. I have a message from the lieutenant. He says to leave the artillery and bring what's the term? I had it in my head a second ago.
If we're leaving the artillery, it stands to reason I'm bringing the infantry, yes?
Yes, that's it.
Why?
We found an entrance into what we assume is the nest. There seems to be a hidden cove inside the volcano.
Yes, and I was able to just make out a wooden structure, possibly a ship.
Ship. Right. That must be where our target is hiding out.
The lieutenant suggested to bring everyone, leave nobody behind.
He's quite right. If there's a madman or predator lurking about, it wouldn't be wise to leave anyone behind. I'm responsible for your safety, like it or not, and I take that very seriously.
I'm sure Klavok would like to have a word with this creature if it is the one that's been stalking him.
At the very least, I would certainly like the chance to take more detailed notes on it. Well, then what are we waiting for, sports? Gather the men! Sound the alarm!
I
Is
love
it
the
the
British
Breakers
sound.
Captain? No, not
Yeah,
the
it's
Breakers.
down, yeah. Right. She waves a hand and gathers the men nearest to her. Password to the camp. Call back the scouts. We're breaking camp and mounting an expedition into the mountain. The soldiers all salute and run off to password along. Arm yourselves, but the artillery stays behind. We're not getting through the jungle with all that. She looks to Klavok. I'm assuming your base is secure enough so that whatever we leave behind stays behind. I'd rather not have our own cannons leveled at us. He kind of scratches at the side of his head, and defending the contents of my backpack is one thing, but eventually Thaun breaks the standoff. If I may lend a machete to this intellectual thicket, perhaps we leave the camp as is. If all that there is the artillery, well, we dealt with your cannons once, old sport. We could do it again, especially with greater resources.
Also, and there's also the fact that this is an active volcano, more or less. It'd be foolish to use cannons here.
Posh, I'm not suggesting using them. I'm more concerned about our enemy using them against us.
I'm saying it would be foolish for them to even try. They'd be hurting themselves.
If they weren't foolish, they wouldn't be here.
Well, you do have a ship that has more cannons than this, I assume.
True.
I'm sure you have some way to signal them if you need to.
Right. And if there's a ship in the cove, logically it must have a way out. Worst comes to worst, we can make a run for the Rotterdam and have the broadside advantage against these buccaneers. Right.
Maybe even steal their ship and use it to escape.
Are you suggesting we engage in piracy?
I mean, considering it was already stolen, wouldn't that just be reclamation?
I consider borrowing.
She kind of rolls her eyes and
I mean, isn't that something you can do on behalf of kings? You can claim things or take things from people.
Commandeer.
I would, but I don't have my flag on hand. But I suppose my word will have to be enough. Whatever vessel this Red has commandeered will be returned to its rightful owners.
If he didn't kill them to get it.
Then it shall be the property of the crown, and we shall make better use of it than these pirates.
Very well. let's pack up and go then.
Lead the way. I'll gather the men. Captain Thaun, I expect you to ensure the diligence of your men. And Mr. Clevark, you will be behind me. I would rather have an expert at my side on traversing this island. He gives a nod of assent, and Thaun wheels around and starts barking orders to the Breakers crew. All of the various companions you've all assembled joining in. You all gives you a kiss of Aben, and, well, that's me then. I guess I better help them get ready.
Very well. I guess Ollie can help me guide this motley crew to the door.
Aye, aye.
I know the way, and she can help with getting through the terrain.
And I'll keep aerial support to make sure nothing sneaks up through the trees.
Bowman gives you a kind of expressionless nod. As the expedition force is assembled, so Greylog, you will be taking either a wild shape or polymorph, I assume?
Well, I figured I would, because I don't want to use my last my last wild shape. I'm going to ask the winged companion of Paul's if they would allow me to ride on their back.
Okay. Paul, are you all right with that? You control the mount, so. I will assume so unless told otherwise.
R.I.P.
Greylog, the creature... Oh, no worries. I would say... it's probably a little bit further than that, but I'm still more just giving you the player agency.
Yeah. I mean, at least Paul by himself, it would not.
Okay. The Periton hesitates for a moment before bowing its head to you and allowing you to climb aboard. Avaben with Ollie, you prepare to guide the expedition force back to the gateway.
With two rangers guiding, I'm sure they can get there even quicker than expected.
With that in mind, however, bear in mind, it being a large group will slow you down somewhat.
Yeah, that's true. But I said like faster than you'd expect this large group.
True. All right. Any business from the expedition party members other than what's already been established?
Just keeping watch from up above.
Okay. Greylog, as you take to the skies on Periton spread wings, Avaben, you, and Ollie, once the expedition is assembled, prepare to lead them forward. The moods of the various parties involved are split. The Bretonnian pirate hunters are treating this expedition with military rigor, although of Aben, you can tell at a glance that they've only been on this island for about a day and a half now, and they're already getting sick of it. They're covered in mosquito bites, they're sweating through their uniforms. Bowman seems to be the only one who's maintaining the stiff upper lip, although even you, with careful inspection, can see cracks in the facade here and there. But
how's the climate treating you, Captain?
It's too damn hot here. Nothing like back home. Nothing like a Perusian winter.
On that we can actually agree.
The forests are quite beautiful in the snow.
They certainly are.
Although I'm afraid I stand out like a sore thumb. And she runs a hand through her red hair.
Probably more for where you're from than who you are.
She gives a small nod and...
Humans are a rare sight, but not one that is hated necessarily. I believe that's right, right? Like humans are sometimes tolerated.
Yeah. Basically, they're only unwelcome if the elves know them to be an enemy. They're allowed to move through the forest as long as they don't directly intrude on elvish territory, which is fairly easy to do because the elves negotiated that their territory does not completely intersect with trade routes. But in exchange, if you go off the beaten path, you could be met with, at the very least, a border patrol who has some questions for you. But that's usually about the worst of it.
It's interesting that they didn't, because usually, like whenever a trade route goes through your border, you ask for them to pay you something.
But bear in mind, the elves don't live in the forest with hope of like profiting off of it. They live there just because like they're at peace with nature and whatnot. So they're not
Yeah.
really interested in the money they would get out of that.
They're not really very materialistic.
Yeah, and if anything, they would be opposed to a trade route because they don't want people tramping on the plants and cutting through them to keep a path clear.
Yeah.
She gives you a nod, and you have my thanks for your assistant. Assuming that your word is reliable and things go according to plan, I would be willing to put in a good word for you back home.
I guess for what it's worth, I'd appreciate it.
She gives you a smirk, and your captain speaks highly of you. And from one seafarer to another, that's the sort of respect I can understand. Although your kind are a rare sight on the seas, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, like I've said, I've not lived typically for my kind.
She gives a small nod, and this one is more mumbled, almost like she half doesn't expect you to be paying attention to it. But as she turns her attention back to her men and kind of snaps her fingers to keep a few of them focused and not mumbling to each other about the heat, you do catch her mumble to herself. Believe it or not, I actually understand what that's like.
But we'll continue to lead the group.
The crew of the Breaker, without the enforced discipline, are a lot more on edge. Their hands are to their guns, and while the Britannians do have their rifles in hand, you can see the Breaker's crew just has weapons full on out, like finger near the trigger, ready to fire the moment something goes wrong. And Thaun, for his part, just kind of gives a nod of assent, almost like this is an expected protocol. Sailors are... Go.
Look by Thaun and ask, crew seems to be a little on edge.
They're quite right to be so. We're in one of the most haunted islands on the seas, going after a monster that eats the flesh of man, and being held hostage by people who we have, let's call it, professional disagreements. They're quite right to be nervous. But I expect any crew of mine to channel those nerves into steel rather than trembles.
Yes, I'm sure a great deal of liquid courage may be involved as well.
I'd rather have it going down their throat than down their legs.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He gives you a smile and pats you on the shoulder. With you at the helm, I'm confident we'll be right as rain. We're going to show this fiend what for, and he pauses his thought and ends it abruptly.
What was that?
Nothing of import, eh, what?
If there's something you know, probably a good time to mention it.
I'm just trying to keep my mind focused on the prize. And you can see he kind of looks to you meaningfully and starts darting his eyes up to the peak of the mountain.
Don't worry about that too much, or things could go wrong.
He kind of gives you a
So
nod,
far, we
but
managed to dodge the curse. I would like to keep it that way.
As would I, my friend, as would I. Klavak, for his part, is by far the most calm, simply idly documenting
Does he
what's
have his
around
full
him.
equipment on?
You do not see his usual pack on his back. Although, knowing him, it's either somewhere secure that he can access or back at base with full security
No,
protocol.
I mean, like, doesn't he have like a? Didn't they say he had like a helmet?
Oh, yes, yeah, he is. He is in his full, like, bedecked regalia. Yes.
Yeah, I'd imagine because we may be walking into a fight.
No, yeah, like, no, I didn't realize that's what you meant. So, yeah, no, he is decked out and ready for a fight. But yeah, he is just kind of idly documenting what's going on around him, and if he catches any complaints from someone nearby, he hands them food or water, but encourages them to keep going.
You seem to be adjusting well to this climate.
Well, be prepared for anything, that's my motto. And, well, I've been here long enough. Keep your socks dry, your throat wet, and you get used to the bug bites.
Well, at least for you right now, you seem to be completely encased, so you're golden on that end.
My armor is a lot of things. Expertly crafted, easily worth thousands, but airtight it is not. And thus, not bug-proof. And he kind of shakes his gauntleted arm, and you can actually see a couple bugs fly out of it.
I like this guy.
I never thought about that.
It's something you get used to when you craft as much as I do. Everything has little imperfections if you know where to look. The important thing is making sure the person buying it doesn't see them.
Looking like a true merchant.
He gives you a nod, and... But, good on you for solving that little puzzle. Whatever it was you did to get the door open, I certainly hadn't thought of it.
Well, apparently those bird-like things were statues.
Ah,
Seems like I had to free them from the webbing and turn them away from each other.
I see. I'd suspected something as much.
There's also some weird writing on them.
Well, perhaps your friends will have cracked it by the time we get there.
Well, apparently, Greylong is able to read it.
Are you? Do you know what tongue it's written in? And he kind of looks around before looking up and... Oh, yes, almost forgot. Yeah. Well, I'll ask him when we get there. You all trudge through the jungle. It's a hike, especially since for... while this is not the first time you've taken this journey of Aben, it is, again, slower going with such a huge expeditionary force, especially because you can see the captains are having to make sure people don't wander off, just through innocently getting lost. Thaun in particular...
Have to whip a few people back in line?
Yeah. And, I will say, Thaun in particular is struggling to keep people in the breaker from, like, just basically misstepping and wandering off.
Can they pay special attention to the breaker crew for any stragglers?
Of course. Make a perception check. This one is in sunlight, so...
Shit.
Guidance.
Guidance?
I got guidance.
Yeah, it's a touch spell, Greylog.
I guess you could just help.
Can I throw an acorn at him? Guidance!
Greylog, if you're okay with that, I will allow this to be considered a help action since you're watching from above.
Yes.
Which would cancel my disadvantage.
So yeah, flat roll.
Like, and I'll also say, when we get back to civilization, anyone from the breaker gets free drink at my tavern.
Also, I got a 30. 12 plus 18. Or 18 plus 12, technically.
Vaben, as you start to kind of keep careful watch of the crew, again, the sun's in your eyes, so you're fine. You're worried you could easily miss someone, but I will say, especially with Greylog circling and dipping down to remind people to get back on track. I will say, while Greylog is the one who catches them slipping, Avaben, you do start to notice as Greylog kind of keeps herding people back that while occasionally it is like different people just, again, innocently slipping up. It's a forest. It's actually very difficult to go in a perfectly straight line in a forest. But you notice it's very consistently one of the same crew members that keeps drifting off. One of the unfamiliar crewmen that Faun had presumably hired while you were back in Tortage. And he does get back in line every time Greylog and you tell him to. It's just you notice it's the same guy slipping every time. Or again, most of the time.
Can I say that the next time he starts to slip, Avaven's gonna kind of like go over and give him like a little light, little tap with the longbow and be like, "Are you having a problem?"
As you catch him starting to drift off again, you tap him on the shoulder. Looking at him closer, you can see you had seen him in Tortage, but you see that he's dressed rather shabbily. While his pants appear to be well made, they are old and have taken a beating, especially being out here. He's gone completely shirtless at this point, and is wearing a hooded cloak to protect him from the sun to a certain degree. And he kind of glances out of the corner of his eye at you, and my apologies. You ever tried to go in a straight line in a forest? It's rather difficult. I've never been in a place like this before. Used to open ground. Or the sea, I suppose.
Oh, you have been. It seems like everybody's having some difficulty with it, but you have. Seems like you're
Wait,
having
that
a
doesn't make
particularly
any
difficult
sense.
time. You've been wandering off a lot. Just try to stay with. Just try to pick someone and follow them.
My apologies, sir. I'll get right on that.
Maybe we'll just playfully say, next time you wander off, I'm gonna have to give you a bonk on the head.
I'd rather you didn't, sir. I need that intact. My thinking parts are in there.
Yeah, well, just be mindful.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear this conversation?
I'll say since you're dipping down periodically.
Also, by the way, I was gonna say, can Avaben insight this dude?
Roll insight.
Because something he said didn't make any sense.
Uh-oh.
Because Portage is right there next to the forest, and they go out into the forest quite a bit for food and supplies.
Yes, they do.
So it doesn't add up. Can I know this is going to be odd. Can I touch him with a piece of iron?
Okay.
I know it will...
Will we count that as helping the insight?
Yeah, because I know it will take down my physical appearance.
Because you know me, I always like advantage.
But a piece of changeling of any kind, like myself...
It'll undo theirs as well.
Exactly.
Do you have iron on you?
Let me see. Do I have...
And because this is meant to have the specific effect of revealing his form changing, I'm going to say this doesn't count as advantage, but you can still insight him freely.
Okay, well, I rolled a 14. 12 plus 2.
No, he seems on the up and up as far as you can tell. He seems like he's just new and inexperienced.
Avaben's going to keep an eye on him.
So it's not specifically iron. It's hard to say what these items are made out of.
Well, what are you looking at?
Iron specifically, or does
I
steel
have
count?
It has to be iron.
Yeah, like I have smithing tools, which could be iron, could be steel.
I would say I'll allow to say if you have an actual set of smith tools on you, so bear in mind
I
not
do.
just proficiency. Yeah, I'll say you probably have like an iron horseshoe or something.
Gonna
Yeah,
tap him
so-
with it.
I'll just like tap him with it.
There you go, tap with shadow form.
I was gonna say, Avaben, you watch as Greylog lands with the Periton, the crew member kind of jumping a little bit before realizing it's him, but Greylog reaches into his pack, and his form shifts into a shadowy, mysterious form as he pulls free, I'll say like an iron nail.
Just kind of taps him with it.
You can see all of the crew who weren't expecting it kind of jump at seeing this display.
Yeah, apparently
But
that's what he really looks like.
Thoun kind of clears his throat and given we're on the hunt for a creature that lurks in the shadows, probably would be wise to give us a warning next time, hey old sport?
Some things, yes, I would agree, but something's not adding up with this guy.
Excuse me?
You're from Tortage, and yet all around it, there is a huge ass forest, and you mean to tell me, in all of your years, you've never been into that forest at all, in any sort of way to be able to be familiarized with a forest setting.
The forest is dangerous. I prefer to stick to the town. There's predators out there, not to mention the slavers.
He is
You-
right about that one. To my knowledge, most people in Tortage avoid the forest.
Yeah, it just
Greylog giving
either
a
way,
tap
no
with your nail.
harm.
Giving a tap with your nail,
It just kind of looks at you funny.
nothing happens. Are you satisfied, sir?
Yeah. If you're having trouble, do we need to like put a rope on you? We don't need to get lost.
I already
Please,
told him to just pick someone and follow them.
I
yes,
thought that's what he was doing.
I'll be all right, sirs. You can see Bowman is staring at the interaction with a cold expression.
My apologies. Rather be cautious, you know.
Oh no, I quite understand. Are we ready to keep moving?
Yeah, let's get moving again. We've already wasted enough time.
Greylog, kind of glancing suspiciously to the crewmen, you take back to the air, and Avaben, you see the shirtless man kind of form back into the group with a kind of slump in his step, like he's kind of embarrassed about being kind of scolded in front of everyone.
Does he seem to be sticking to the group better?
Yes, you can see at this for the rest of the expedition, his path does not waver away from the others.
Very well. Then we'll just continue on.
All right.
You made it seem suspicious the way like like this one guy kept slipping away.
As the two of you at the entrance wait, the door does not close. The webbing remains there dead, although you do both begin to notice a slight kind of rotty smell to the air, as the web with nothing connecting it now seems to just start to die and rot. Eventually, you're given the sweet relief of a sunset, as the sun is no longer beating down on your poor heads. And in the distance, you hear the sound of a large march before. Asari, seeing Greylog flying overhead, Paul aboard your mount. You eventually see Avaben lead everyone in the expedition out into the clearing in front of the entryway. As you all regroup, Paul, you see Eric approach Bowman and give a small bow. There you are, Captain. I'm here. I'm ready with the situation report. Yes, speak. And Eric passes on everything he had learned from being here while you guys solved the puzzle. Thaun approaches Paul and Asari with a smile. Well, look at you, clever cogs. Leave it to you to solve this puzzle that sailors have been racking their brains over for years.
Yep. The baby will kind of saunter over. Like, apparently the solution was to make these birds go from looking like they're fighting each other to looking like they're fighting with each other.
Is there a way that I can speak with Ivan without anybody hearing me?
You can certainly attempt to stealth.
Okay. I'm gonna try to whisper something to Ivan.
Roll stealth.
Okay.
Rolls like unnatural 20. It's so stealthy even if Vaben didn't notice you. If Vaben doesn't even hear what you
Hey,
say.
almost a natural 20. I got an 18, so 19.
All right. Avaben Asari approaches you and kind of glances around. Although to her credit, it's not overtly obvious that that's what she's doing. Before she leans in and whispers to you, I'll say, Asari, you're confident you're not being heard.
Okay. I'll say something like, the creature that is here responds negatively to negative emotion. I think if we maybe start to try to draw it out that way, it might be helpful instead of getting ambushed.
Does Vaben think of anything about this creature from the... Because I think he had a book that had it in there, right?
Not the creature Asari is referring to.
Yeah, well, as far as he knows, she's referring to that.
No, yeah, I know. That's an understandable confusion. I was more just like making sure you and I were on the same page.
I'm saying that's what he's under the impression of.
Yeah. So, yes, I will say...
Anything about was it the bed of thorns?
Yes, the bed of thorns and the sea of spiders.
Is there anything about them that indicate what Asari's saying?
From the stories you've heard, you remember that the sea of spiders responded well to positive emotions. So it could be extrapolated that they don't like negative ones, although you've never heard of that being elevated to a full-on like vulnerability. So basically, you can see how she might have come to that conclusion, but you don't have any like textbook evidence other than being like, oh, because they like the opposite, they must dislike the other one.
Okay, so could I say reasonably by like the confusion on his face, Asari can just be like,
I
oh.
was going to say, I'm not 100% certain if that's one of the things with these creatures.
Oh, I'm talking about a completely different type of creature called the Savant King.
Why are we talking about those?
Well, it's because it's evident here that the handwriting, everything leads to the Savant King.
Well, yes, the statues.
Not
Yeah.
just the statues. There's writings and everything, like the language that Grelog was reading is Savant King. So...
Well, that would indicate that the people who made all this are certainly...
Yeah,
that.
but like
That wouldn't
it could
imply
still... It could still be here, is what I'm trying to get at. Because,
Yeah,
you know...
I see what you're saying. I'm just saying that we don't necessarily know if that is the creature we're after.
Well, we don't know that it's not. You know, it doesn't hurt to try.
That's called a lack of evidence. It's not called a solution.
Have you ever heard of, you know, the scientific method?
I believe it involves using evidence.
Deductions.
I'm just gonna say out of character.
Hypotheticals.
Paul, what are you
I've never
doing?
heard of that part of it.
Oh, I mean, I guess with the party here, or well, with the, I guess with all the people here, he's just gonna just help where he can. Just like, oh, navigate people to where they need to be, wherever that might be.
All right. Greylog, anything from you?
Greylog's mostly going to be like keeping an eye out, just looking for information, anything that might, be an ambush.
Okay. Greylog keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. Asari and Avaben kind of pulling away very slightly, not enough to be suspicious, but enough to ensure you're not overheard. You have your whispered debate about what to do next. And Paul, you assist the crew, helping get people who are getting exhausted back on their feet, and despite feeling pretty tired yourself. And Bowman, Klavak, and Thaun take position between the two statues, the three of them kind of overlooking the destroyed webbing curiously, before Bowman is the first to turn on her heel and address the expeditionary force. Right. I have reason to suspect, beyond the obvious, before there's any smartasses, you can hear a few, even of her crew and some of the breaker chuckle a bit, that we are not alone on this island. Klavak steps forward. In my time here, I've found evidence that this island was, at least at one point, inhabited. According to the deductions of... And she gestures to Asari.
Everyone will kind of gesture for Asari to step forward to claim her theory.
Yeah, sorry, we'll step forward.
That this island, at least at one point, was inhabited by the Savant Kin. You can hear a few soldiers break out in whispers. Although from the looks of on the Breakers crew, they seem completely oblivious to what this is.
By the way,
Bless
does
you,
the Maven
mate.
know what a savant can?
Bless you.
Roll history.
History. 16.
You've heard the name, but it doesn't really mean anything to you. Bear in mind, they are very rare and very isolated. So the name isn't completely unfamiliar to you, but you don't really know anything about them. With that in mind, we will be altering our approach slightly. The crews of our respective vessels will use our artillery battery to establish a base camp out here. We do not want our enemies getting behind us. I'm already concerned enough about the presence of an artillery encampment back at home base. She looks around, and I'll say, Avaden, you actually catch her glance drifting, and she's kind of looking among the Breakers crew somewhat suspiciously. In the interim, a small team of scouts, along with myself, will enter the cavern and locate our target. You can see Klavak, for his part, has just been completely ignoring the conversation and writing in his notebook after the mention of the Savant Kin. And Paul, you catch him muttering to himself, exactly as I suspected. Thaun, for his part, kind of creases his brow and... Captain, with all due respect, I think it would be best if I remain with my crew. And that is what you'll be doing. She looks to Paul, Greylog, and the others. You're all coming with me. We're finding this Red and bringing him to justice. Whether that be at the point of a sword or the drop of a noose, I don't care which. In exchange, if he vouches for your innocence, I will be more than happy to provide you a royal escort and my apologies. If not, well, you can die with your cohort on this godforsaken island.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're willing to listen to a hardened criminal and suspect rather than, completely innocent people.
Let me put it to you this way. If he is on your side, then you will have me completely surrounded, outnumbered 5-1. By all rights, you're such strong, powerful warriors that I won't stand a chance. You can see a few of her soldiers kind of quirk their brows and look to each other like even they don't believe that. So what do you have to be afraid of? He'll likely make it quite obvious to me, and all of you right behind him, that I've walked straight into your trap. And she kind of rolls her head as she says that. But if we go in and he treats you with the same hostility as to be expected of treasure hunters, then, and she gives a shrug, I will take that as confirmation of your innocence, and I will fight with sword and pistol to get you out of here safely.
Yeah, what if it's not one of those two responses?
At this, initially, she tilts her head and nods to you for clarification.
Like what if he doesn't necessarily respond as if we're in on this together, but also just doesn't outright attack either?
If, against all odds, he approaches this like a civilized gentleman, then I will negotiate with him as I would a fellow.
Matthew, did we at some point ever mention that Paul actually knew Red?
Yeah, it was mentioned. It was mentioned before, which is part of the reason. Like, yeah, she even basically involved you guys in tracking him.
Well, to be fair, he does know Paul. They weren't exactly on enemy terms I heard. They weren't exactly friends, but they weren't exactly on bad terms either. Paul may not necessarily be working with him, but he may recognize him and not attack him immediately.
That if he doesn't attack, then we can talk it through. Frankly, I prefer that outcome than the alternative.
As would I. But you do raise a good point. If it comes to that, Mr. Paul, was it? Are you willing to put this old traveling companion of yours on the point of a sword if it comes between him and innocent lives?
It was between him and innocent lives. I will do what I need to do, but preferably, I would like to see him come out of this alive, man. As I would like to see all y'all come out.
Then we should not have a problem. If anything, we may be able to leverage your association with him to our advantage. But I'm not holding out hope for that. He's a pirate. Pirates don't have allies. They have fair weather friends. And the weather on this island is likely about to turn very, very sour for him.
Who knows, maybe he'll be crafty and he'll know you'll react like this and he'll act like we're in on it just to make you attack us.
That's why I asked that probing question earlier. That way I know that if you're against him and he's trying to soften me up, I will take your aggression to him as confirmation. If I'm wrong and all of you are pirates, then you'll instead outnumber me 4-1 instead of 5-1. If I'm correct in my insight, then we have him outnumbered 5-1. Either way, I benefit, and if your word is true, so do you. So unless you're lying, you have nothing to fear from me. And she holds out a hand. Do we have a deal?
Well,
Yeah, let's
I
do
could
it.
see the logic behind it, but I'm not going to make an assumption for my whole group. What do the rest of you think?
And I'm not really. I'm not sure what they kind of deal with, but man, I will do what I can to make sure the best outcome comes to.
I've got nothing to hide. I've never met the bloke in my life.
Then we're in agreement. She puts her hand down when nobody directly approaches, but does not seem to take at least obvious offense to that, other than a slight crease of the brow. Form camp around the artillery battery. The rest of you, come with me. You'll scout ahead. Let's draw this bastard out and bring him to justice.
I guess that's logical. I am probably the best at seeing in the dark out of this entire group.
It pays to think strategically. You see Paul, Eric
Is there an
approach.
actual Savakeen that we're sure of is here?
Who are you directing this to?
Any and all.
I didn't
Bowman,
hear what he said, to be honest.
Basically, are we sure that there's Savantkin here? And
To be honest, I don't think we're 100% certain that they're still here. Those writings could be put on there a long time ago. They
Okay,
could have
tell
been
me-
put on a month ago.
Could I tell how old they were? They were only like a couple weeks old, right?
No,
you knew that the basically cocooning would have been that old.
Possibly longer.
But the writing was older?
It definitely was there before the cocoon. Roll investigation.
Okay. Mm, 14.
They definitely look fairly on the old side. You don't have an exact date just from like a face-to-face examination. You would need your tools for that and possibly a textbook. But you can at least guesstimate that these are easily like several years old. Like I said, easily older than even the Curse of the Island stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about the writing is that it's a couple years old, but these things could live for years. So it's quite possible it's still here, just hiding.
That's
What
why.
language do they speak?
Sovereign Keen?
Bowman kind of shakes their head and just continues directing for base camp, although Clavok pipes up. That's actually rather interesting. Their language is a mixture of Draconic and Sylvan. Most of them speak either tongue fluently, but perhaps living on this island in isolation has caused the languages to combine together into their own native tongue. I've encountered a few of them in my travels, I'm proud to say, so I'm able to speak both with at least passable fluency.
If only you thought to open the cocoons.
He gives a nod, and I suspected what might be beneath, but I wasn't ready to alert a predator to my location without backup.
Would y'all be opposed to trying to see if anything is still here by trying to communicate with it instead of violence?
That's what I was going to say, was like maybe draw it out and see if we...
Kin, then we can certainly try. If we encounter this red, well, the option seems to be out of our hands.
Well, you said one of its languages is Draconic, correct?
Yes, that's right. Draconic and Sylvan. although I know they at least have a passable understanding of the common tongue, albeit with a heavy accent.
Oh,
Uh,
heavy? What would they sound like?
With
Is he
any
going
luck,
to do an impression?
with any luck, we may find out. And he gestures with his journal to Greylog.
well, I was thinking, if it's in the caves echo, we could always. I speak Draconic very well. I can
So
simply
do I,
respond
honey.
to that.
Don't you speak Sylvan?
Let's see what's in
Uh,
there and then
Druidic.
go from there.
Hmm.
Again, if we encounter the Sylvan King, then obviously yes, we should probably talk to them. They may know where this red has gone, if he's on this island at all.
I'd rather find it first before we find Red.
Mm-hmm.
The Sylvan Kin are not an it. From what I understand, they are they.
That's right. They're a break-off of the Phantasmakin Empire. A great secret that their elders hold very close. They've been driven out of the Empire. They usually live in the Hangandan jungles of Ephisum, but apparently a small cluster of them must have made their way here.
Does any of that sound familiar to Raven?
I will lump that in with your previous history check. You recognize Ephisum as another continent, although one you've never been to. You recognize the Phantasmakin Empire, just basically from hearing stories of them. They are a very ancient and powerful empire that's still around today. Think of them as the sort of, not culturally, but just in terms of their overall strength. Think of them as like the sort of Greece of their homeland. But again, you've only heard of the Savankin and the Hangandan jungles just from folk tales and hearsay of the Empire.
So, considering also that it is a few years old, the people who did the writing on these statues are likely separate from whatever we are after. Especially considering that the thing that Clavok says has been chasing him was not reported to be here by Thon on his previous time on this island.
Bowman.
I assume you didn't run into any Savankin in your stay either.
Can't say I had the pleasure. Bowman, who's looking over the entry but not crossing the threshold themselves yet, waiting for you guys to do it, she turns over her shoulder and... Yeah, Paul, as you make your way past her, and she kind of watches you, but she speaks to the others behind her.
Avaven will hurry up too.
These creatures had this doorway blocked. I think it's reasonable to extrapolate they are by no means allies. However, I am not willing to place my complete faith in a people I've never met. That's why we're leaving the base camp here. And she looks to you, Greylog, as she gestures to her men and the Breakers crew setting up around the artillery.
Well, if any of these markings indicate anything, this is an entrance. So what if it's not keeping something in rather than keeping something out?
It's possible, but we don't. We will probably learn more if we go in.
Unless you have a way to establish communication with these creatures, I'm inclined to agree with your companion.
Well, I mean, Greg and I can speak Draconic.
If we encounter
maybe
them,
we can-
then we will give you your chance.
Alright.
Like, there's no harm. Whatever is here already knows we're here. It may not know that we can communicate with it, though. Well, with them. My apologies. With them.
Well then,
Again, like I said, if we encounter them, then obviously we should try to avoid an unnecessary fight if we can. If we simply just encounter our target, then well, you know what to do.
Bowman unsheaths her cutlass and levels it at the door where Vaben is standing and Paul's already walking past and looks to the two of you. Well then, scouts, lead on.
have Abe and Will.
Greylog?
Okay.
All right. As you all head in, Bowman gives another suspicious look over the Breaker's crew before slipping into the dungeon with you. And that is where we're going to end tonight's session. Having approached something of a plan and an uneasy ceasefire between the parties on the island, you have discovered a doorway built by the mythical chameleon folk, the Savant King, potentially keeping something inside trapped or preventing others from finding it. Yet another potential factor into your journey ahead. The island is haunted, potentially still skulked by invisible shape-shifting natives, and of course, there's still the threat of Britannian pirate hunters with a blade to your back in the event that the pirate you're hunting gives an unexpected response. Check out our website at officiald5hub.info. Resurrected from the grave like a filthy necromancer sweating in a jungle deciphering chameleon language. Check out our LinkedIn chat to join our official D5 Discord server if you want to hang out with us directly. Support our episodes posted on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and the
Rip.
Rip.
iHeart
Matthew,
Podcast Network, wherever you have
You
to get
cut
them from.
you cut out
Yeah, you
really
cut
bad
out
there,
bad.
honey.
No, I was saying where did I cut out?
Right after all I heard was right after the website.
Okay. Check out our link in chat to join our official D5 Discord server if you want to hang out with us directly, and support our episodes posted on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and the iHeart Podcast Network, wherever you happen to get them from. For our audio listeners, catch us live on Mondays at 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time on twitch.tv/Odd Tornado Productions. Check out Odd Tornado Productions official on Tumblr to find links to our other works, including our Paladins Twitch channel at twitch.tv/AustinFreak123. If you enjoy what we do, please support us on Patreon. That link to be posted as well. On Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/Odd Tornado Productions, and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/TornadoOdd. The TNO are capitalized. And if you want to see more of this party, plus or minus a few, tune in tomorrow, Tuesdays at 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time, for our Tuesday game of Black Ink and Blue Blood, featuring a party of politicians and nobles trying to unravel a political conspiracy if they can just stop stabbing each other in the back long enough. Thanks, everyone at the table so much for playing. Thanks, everyone at home so much for watching. And we'll see you all next week.